All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It's been a while.
Mhm.
I'm thrilled to have Johnny present to us. I've been following Johnny for quite a while on on Instagram, and let me just give a little backstory to how I came to know Johnny. I have not met him personally, but I think we're almost friends, aren't we, Johnny?
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah. Let
Yeah.
me let me give a little backstory because this is kind of interesting how I came to know Johnny. Well, right back when I worked for the state of Utah, I worked with several youth programs, and Johnny's brother Alfred is a minister I'm not sure the church that he ministers in, but anyway, we worked and collaborated together on several youth programs, so I got to know Alfred really well throughout the years working with these programs. Well, it was interesting because then when I left the state, I didn't see him for a while. Well, a few years back, my nephew, my great nephew, got married, getting married up in Layton, and I attended the wedding. And guess who the preacher was? Alfred.
Yeah.
So I ran into Alfred after several years. We ran into each other again, and since then have been staying in touch. And then when I published my book and was getting ready to do the documentary, I shared that with Alfred, and he goes, "You need to contact my brother. You got to see what he's doing." And so I did, and I've been just blown away with Johnny with the work you're doing with Chicano Hollywood. You're telling our stories, and as I say in my book, these are stories that have been ignored by U.S. history books and Hollywood, and I'm so glad you're telling these stories. So with that, Johnny, let me just do a quick introduction, and then we'll let you go from there. Okay? So Johnny Murillo is a founder of Chicano Hollywood, a fast-growing media, education, and production platform dedicated to empowering Chicano and Latino creators, entrepreneurs, and storytellers. A filmmaker, producer, and cultural strategist, Murillo has spent over a decade building community-driven pipelines that connect underrepresented talent to real opportunities in film, television, digital media, and brand partnerships. Through Chicano Hollywood, he has created a powerful ecosystem that includes ChicanoHollywood.com, Chicano Hollywood TV, Chicano Hollywood Magazine, and Chicano Hollywood Academy, the Chicano Hollywood Film Festival, and the Elevate the Latino Voice Conference, serving tens of thousands of creators and audiences across the United States. Murillo's work sits at the intersection of storytelling, technology, and economic empowerment. He is a pioneering new model for vertical series, micro budget films like mine, live commerce, and creator led media, helping Latino talent not only get seen, but get paid. His mission is to build sustainable ownerships, scalable platforms, and generational opportunities for the next wave of Latino creators. Today, Johnny Murillo is a leading Chicano Hollywood into, I'm sorry, is leading Chicano Hollywood into a next phase, a national Latino-driven content network designed to shape culture, create wealth, and elevate voices that have been overlooked for too long. So with that, Johnny, welcome, and thank you again for presenting to our group.
No, thank you guys. Thank you so much. This is fun. Can I ask what group is this? Like what's the background? What's the form I will, I know the name, the title manual, on a conversation, but how did this group form?
Ed, I'll let you take that on.
Let me see. Where's Gloria or Margie? Margie, why don't you take the how the group formed? I don't know how much about how the group formed.
Okay,
But
I
okay, go
got it.
ahead, Margie.
So in 2014, I went to New Mexico and I met with this girl, Bernice Martinez, that was from here. And she's told me all about these organizations. I didn't know there was any genealogical organizations for Hispanics. And I started going to their meetings in 2014, not their meetings, their conferences in 2014. And then in 2017, they told me there was a group in Utah that was trying to organize a chapter. They were focused more on Mormon Hispanics. But we got through that whole process and eventually we got um, our group going. And so we're part of the National Genealogical Society of Hispanic America out of Pueblo.
Really? So this
So
is
it's genealogy.
genealogical.
Yes.
Wow. So are you all like related, somehow connected? Is that how this group forms?
Well, if we're from New Mexico,
Yeah,
we're all
we're all pretty
related,
much.
right?
Not
We're
all.
finding out we're finding out that we do have connections.
Yes.
Really? Oh my gosh, that's fun. I think it's fun.
There's
Y-
there's a chapter in Southern California and in Pueblo, Colorado, and then our Utah chapter.
wow, wow, wow. That's fun. That's fun. I'm sure the Southern California, they have that. They're probably rooted way down into Mexico, but I'm sure Pueblo and Utah, you guys are more the Manito community, right? More the descendants directly from Spain and so on, right? That is
Mm-mm.
amazing.
Actually, I have found more related descendants from this group than I did the Colorado group. So I
Wow.
my membership because these are primos and primas here, and
Yeah.
that harkens from New Mexico, and there isn't a group in New Mexico, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah, I'm sure.
there's the New Mexico Genealogical Society that's really big
Right, and
in
Really?
Albuquerque.
I've been a member of that for a very long time. And the New Mexico DNA Project, which was a branch of New Mexico Genealogical Society. And then that's how you find, like, for instance, my Martinez branch was verified through that society. And that gives everybody who is Martinez a way to find their DNA link to Mexico through that. I mean, Spain through that.
Through Spain, yeah, yeah. Well, that is that's fun because like Manuel was saying earlier, I am, my brother is in Utah and he has a great ministry there. He does a lot of outreach with food. So, especially during the pandemic, his whole thing just blew up where he was just has a bunch of trucks and making sure he was feeding several thousand families every month. So he's very embedded into the Utah community. We're originally from San Jose. So we and then our family's from, our dad's side is from Zacatecas, my mom's side is from Baja and from Leon. So we kind of could just we've never done the DNA thing, but that's kind of where our family's from. But both him and I have been in ministry. I was a pastor for 23 years with the Assemblies of God. So him and I have been in ministry for involved with what's called within the Assemblies of God, it's a denomination and it's divided up across the nation. And then the area that we were involved in was over the Rocky Mountain region. So like I pastored in Cortez, Colorado, in Greeley, Colorado, and then he's been in Albuquerque. My wife is originally from Albuquerque, and then I was in Denver 4 years, doing a lot of outreach there. And then he was in Durango, then he gravitated towards Utah and Salt Lake. His wife's originally from Salt Lake. She is a Rivera, and her family all comes from Southern Colorado. So it's fun because in California, there's names that pop up all the time, recognizable names, but the names that I am always familiar with are the Pacheco, Romero, Trujillo. So I'm looking at some of your last names, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a like they're probably as prominent in Southern California, but I do know those last names as from the Manito area. So seeing all you guys here, I feel like I'm in an old church meeting because those are all the same families when I was there. And we would have our big youth events and all that in up and down the Rocky Mountain region. We had a big youth camp in Chama. So somebody that might be familiar with Chama, New Mexico,
Mhm.
that's where we'd go there and all that. So it's good to see you. It's good to connect with you guys. It's good to see a lot of familiar last names. Montoya, I see Leroy saying the Montoya last name. So all your last names is fun. So especially this being a group that's gathered because of DNA connections, that's really cool. That's really cool. So I always tell
Who's the
people
who's the Rivera you were talking about?
the Riveras, that's my sister-in-law. Her name is Anna, and her parents are Richard and Lillian Rivera. And
Okay, that's Karen's parents. Karen's
Karen, yeah,
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 went
yeah,
to school with Karen.
yeah, really, yeah, Karen, yeah, yeah. She's retired. She was with the prison system, I think. Yeah, yeah, Karen. So yeah, we've known. Well, actually, my brother's been married 35 years to that Rivera family. So yeah, They're family to us too. So, and then we used to live there. I used to live in with South Weaver. So if you're familiar with the South Weaver area, we lived out there near the Layton area. My youngest went to Layton High School and so on. So, but anyways, yeah. So we are very familiar with Utah. As a matter of fact, now in that was my ministry world. So 23 years ago, I'll give you a little background story, so you know how this all came about. So I was in ministry and focused on a lot of outreach and so on, and that was my biggest thing. I was church planning. So church planning, what that means is you basically go to a community and you start a church from scratch, right? So I was in the Sacramento area in here in Northern California, and we started a ministry there, very, very outreach focused on those that were marginalized, Hispanic and Black and actually Hmong as well. Hmong is an Asian community, so we would doing a lot of outreach there, and I was doing that. That was like the last actual official church I was pastoring. Then right around 2008, right 2007, 2008, right when the economy really just that one real estate bubble popped, it devastated our community up in Northern California, Sacramento area, because most of everybody's into real estate, mortgages, and construction. So that just stopped. So what happened with my ministry, because we only had a handful of people that were actually giving, and they were all into mortgages and construction and real estate, it all stopped. So, it kind of forced us to the position that we had to close the church. And it was in that time frame that me as a human being, I was going through this midlife crisis now. And I could laugh at it now, so we can I look, we've all had those moments, right? Where we think, oh, that was devastating, I wasn't never going to survive, but we do, so I had one of those moments. I'm like, oh my gosh, all my life, even though we were raised in the barrio in San Jose, raised with all that barrio story. um and when I got into ministry at 18 years old, I went to Bible school in Arizona. And then from there, I was just a pastor. That's what I did as a minister. And then it just all shut down. And so I'm going through this. What am I supposed to do now? Now, parenthetically, things were happening that I really felt like me, as a person, as a calling that I had to help the world. I felt like God was leading us into Hollywood. And that's what happened. My kids it was funny. We went to a conference in Modesto, California, and it was at that conference that I had my three young kids, and we're at the hotel. We're checking in, and the lady at the hotel, she has no idea what she did by just asking this one question. She said, "Oh, are you guys here for the casting call?" And I said, "Casting call? What's that?" And she goes, "Oh, there's people from Hollywood that are looking for child actors." And I said, "Oh, really?" So I knew we had nothing to do that night because we got there early. And so I looked at my three kids and I said, "Hey, you guys want to do this?" And they said, "No, no, no." Now they were in church plays, so I, they love to do all that stuff. So I told them, like, "Hey, give you $25 or whoever wants to do it, just so we could have something fun to do." And so, okay, 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 we'll do it. So the three of them got casted. I mean, the three of them auditioned, and then they got scouted. So they picked up some representation, like a manager. Then they picked up an agent, and that was the process. So the next thing you know, now I'm going to I'm taking my kids, especially my oldest at the time. They're taking them to Hollywood from Sacramento. We're driving to Hollywood for auditions. And my son, he's auditioning for some really big projects. He's getting involved in some stuff. He's doing some local things in the San Francisco market. My daughters, I have two daughters, they're both doing the same thing. And all of a sudden, it's now part of our life. Now, simultaneously, as I'm losing what I thought was my whole career for the rest of my life, my calling as a pastor, now this is beginning to grow. And so, you know, when the economy tanks, I had to shut the church down. I had like, I had no job per se, and I'm trying to put food on the table. The economy was in a mess, and because my kids were in the system, I was getting emails from the San Francisco market saying, "Hey, we need actors for this or actors for that." So there was an opportunity to become a background actor. What a background actor is, all the people you see walking around when the cameras are rolling. And I said, you know, it's like 4 days of work. So yeah, I'll do it. So I submitted and I got selected. So now I'm in this movie. Some of you might know it's called Four Christmases. Has Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon, and it comes out every holiday. You'll see it. Four Christmases, and it has Robert Duvall and a few others. And so if there's a big scene in there where we're in the airport, there's like 400 of us. It was there that now, from being a parent of child actors, where I would just sit and just watch. Now I'm participating, and it's like, wow, this is cool. And one of those 4 days, I remember I was near what's called the crafty table, which is like snacks and bottled waters and so on and fruit. So I'm right next to it, and then the lady, she gets up and she's what's called the second. And she kind of what we call wrangles. She wrangles all the background, tells them what to do and that kind of stuff. So she gets on the table, little Latina lady, right? And I remember looking at her like, oh, she's Latina because everybody else was non. And so she jumps up on the table and she starts giving us commands. And it was right there that it just dropped in my heart, like, hey, I really felt like the Lord was saying, this is what I'm calling you to do now. And I'm like, well, it just kind of freaked me out because if you know anything about the denomination that I came out of as a pastor is Pentecostal. And so all through the 90s, I'm preaching against movies, I'm preaching in secular music. I mean, that's what, it's just what we did. And so now I feel like God's telling me, hey, I want you to go do this. And I just didn't know what to do with that. And so I remember driving home that day from San Francisco back to Sacramento, um, with tears in my eyes because I'm thinking, it felt so real to me. So I went back a couple more days and it just pounded in me. And I'm like, by this time I'd already had shut down my church because I said it's primarily, people from the tough areas. There was not a whole lot of money. So I had to shut down the church and I'm just trying to find work. And then I get this renewed calling now to go to Hollywood. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. So, long story short, after a few more signs, we packed it up. 2009. I had to wait for my son to get out of high school. Once he graduated, we put him in Vanguard University down in Orange County, and it was my wife, myself, my two daughters, and we're like, okay, I really felt like this is what we're supposed to do. So we went to we left, packed it up, we just got rid of as much as we can. I only had like maybe $2,600 in my pocket, and we moved to LA. And when we got to LA, one of the things that we felt like we had to do was go to Culver City. Now, we had no idea where Culver City was. I didn't know anything about Culver City. So when I was doing some research, I actually felt like Culver City was going to be some mountain town somewhere up in, up way up in the mountains that I never heard of or never didn't even know existed. But it ended up being that Culver City was like the birthplace of the studios. Like Sony was there. It used to be Columbia Studios, it used to be RCA Studios. So Sony is the big studio there in Culver City. Then there's a couple others. So we drove into Culver City. I remember it was late at night. We got a hotel for the whole week, and I'm in Culver City right now, the heartbeat of this thing. There's Hollywood, but that's where all the tourist stuff is, and then there's other studios, Paramount and Warner Brothers and Burbank, but everything kind of started. Do you remember those old Mickey Rooney and
Mhm.
Abbott and Costello and Beverly Hillbillies and Andy Griffith? All those were shot in Culver City. So all the shows that we were raised with were right there in that little town. So now we're there for a week, and in that week I'm trying to find a place to live, and it was tough, and we weren't sure if we were supposed to. By this time I felt like I was by the end of the week, and we couldn't find an apartment or anywhere to live. I'm like, okay, I failed, I messed up, I know I'm I felt like I have nowhere to go now with my wife, my two daughters. Um, and I remember on Sunday, we checked out of the hotel. Now I'm down, we probably spent over $1,000 now. And I'm down and I said, well, let's just try to find a church. Maybe we'll get a sign or something. And we go to this one church and, they met at a park. So we went there and nothing. And by this time, I'm like, oh, great. And now my brother Alfred from Salt Lake. He's texting me, he's saying, hey, just, don't worry about it. Just come over here. You can live with me. They have this really big, beautiful home there in South Weaver, and that big basement. You know how your basements are all built out over there? It's not a big thing. They don't do that much in California, but your basements are always built out with bedrooms and so on. So he's like, just come over here. You can have the whole basement, that's a little kitchen and all that. And so after church, we went to Chipotle. I don't know how many of you guys like Chipotle, but we went to Chipotle, and I'm sitting there, and by this time I'm depressed. I don't know if any of you have ever really been through a feeling like you failed, but by this time I'm like, I bombed this, I blew it. I'm looking at my wife, and we're trying to play it out and be positive because my two daughters were there, but I'm just falling apart inside. And I'm telling my wife, I apologize. I missed this. We're running out of money, and maybe we'll just drive to Salt Lake. And there was two guys right when we're finishing our lunch. There was two guys that were there, and I recognized them from the church. It was just a small church. And so when we got up to walk to the parking lot, they got up behind us. And as we're walking, I looked at them, and we got to the parking lot, the parking garage, and I looked at them and said, "Hey guys, did you guys were at that church, right?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Hey, would you mind praying for us? Because I just need to hear something from God." And the guy goes, "Well, I'm not really good at that, but yeah, we'll pray." So we circled up right in the parking lot of Hollywood, of Culver City, of that parking garage, and we prayed. And then the guy tells me, "Man, I don't know if this is gonna make any sense, but I really feel like God's telling me to tell you that don't leave, that He has a house for you. He has a place for you to live." And I'm like, "Okay." So I said, "All right, thank you." And we went to the car, and I remember we're on the top of this parking garage, like the fourth floor, and we waited, and I go, "What do I do now?" So then I get a call from this Indian man. He's from India, and he says, real strong accent, "Hey, you want to see my house? You called me." And I remember leaving a bunch of voicemails because this is in 2009, so we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have all that kind of stuff like back then, right? It was barely still in a toddler stage. So, I'm looking at Craigslist, and I'm looking at the newspaper, and I'm making phone calls for rentals. So he goes, "You left a voicemail?" And I goes, "Come and see it." So we went down. There's like 4 blocks away from where we were at, and it was an Indian man. He was an older man. He had his son. His son was middle aged, and they showed us around. And as we walked around, we I looked at them, and it's a small little apartment. I looked, I said, "Hey, they said, do you want to rent it?" I said, "Yeah." So we sat down at the one little table they had there. He puts the application down, and he says, "Okay, I need to know your income. I need bank statements. I need a deposit, I need first and last and all that stuff," right? So he needed like $3,600. And that same apartment, right? I got it for 1,600. That same apartment is like probably $4,000 because of crazy inflation and all that, but it's just a small little apartment, nothing fancy at all, but it's probably renting $4,000 a month now. But when he put all that stuff down, and I looked at him, and I said, I said, "Look, I'm gonna tell you something. We're pastors. We've really felt like God told us to come to Hollywood. I don't have a job, but if you rent me your place, I promise you that the rent will get paid." And now he's from India, and he said, um, he looked at me. The older man, the dad, he got upset, and he turned his back on me, and he just kind of it was so funny. And then the son, he says, he looks at me, and he says, "I go to the Hindu temple 3 times a day, and I pray 3 times a day, every day. And then you're telling me that God told you to come to Hollywood, and you're a pastor." And he stands up, and he pulls the keys out of his pocket, slams them on the ground, and he tells me, he goes, "You don't have a job, you don't have, And then what I told him was, like, I pulled out all the money I had. So I had like 1,600 and change, or maybe like 1,700 and change. And he goes, "And you're telling me that God told you to come and to rent my apartment?" And he stands up, puts the keys down. He goes, "How am I supposed to argue with God?" And he slams the keys, and he grabs my cash, and he walks out. And the dad's freaking out, and he walks out, and they shut the door. And then he goes, "Pay the rent. Make sure you pay the rent." And that's it. And I remember my oldest daughter, she's like, what just happened? I said, I think we got a place to live. And
All right.
so from that point on, that was in August of 2009. We've been in Hollywood, and it's been a interesting journey because again, I didn't know anything about this business. I had zero knowledge other than taking my kids to auditions, and I started plugging into it. So now I'm in the midst of where it all started, and I'm like, oh man, what are we supposed to do now? In that journey, I've had some tough times and some great times, but since then. I, because of my skills that I already have from ministry and from business, I used to have multiple businesses. I had a construction company and I had a car rental company and so on. Because of those skills, I was able to translate those and just all I had to do is learn the language of Hollywood. And I was able to still bring those skills across. And I took some couple classes at UCLA and barely surviving. This was like before side gigs were even a thing. There was no Uber. I think Lyft had just started with the pink mustache. If you remember when Lyft started, they had like a big pink mustache that they put on the front of their bumpers on their cars. So we get in, we start learning, and I get on this producer track. By this time, I was doing a lot of acting per se. I was in TV shows as background. So I'm making background money. That's it. Do a couple lines once in a while. Um, but then I get on this track. So that was 18 years ago. And since then, I would learn and I get involved in different things. And then because of my skills, I produced the first uh, pilot that I produced was a pilot called Tattooed Love. It was a story about some high-end call girls that were scamming all these men and so on like that. And so all of a sudden now I'm in this lane of a go-to guy that people would ask me, hey, can you help us with this, can you help us with that? And primarily because I had those skills to organize. So now for 18 years in going into this, where I've produced some movies. You could see some of those movies on. There's one called Lady of Guadalupe. It's about the vision of that Juan Diego had with Virgen de Guadalupe. You could see that on I think it's on Prime and it might be on Apple TV, but it's starring Guillermo Ivan, who's a big actor from Mexico. We shot all of that movie, you'll see actually no, the majority of that movie was shot in northern New Mexico. So those who are familiar with New Mexico, we shot it in Taos, we shot it in Santa Fe, we shot it in the one of the Pueblo reservations, and they have really cool historical monuments, historical places out there that we were able to shoot in the old Spanish style. And then the very last shot, we shot that over in DF, in Mexico City, at the Basilica de la Virgen de Guadalupe, and we shot it out there.
Mhm.
So you could see a couple other coming of age movies, Region Rat. And then we had there's a real Chicano movie that I wrote and a buddy of mine produced. It's called Horchata with Oat Milk. It's a comedy. And you could, if you do that one, that they're only selling it directly, so you can see that one. Horchatawithoatmilk.com has a bunch of Chicano comedians. It was on that set. Now, years later, fast forward now, it was on the set of Horchata with Oat Milk that Chicano Hollywood was birthed. And the way that happened, so now I'm in this game, I'm producing stuff. I have some of my clients were like BuzzFeed, which is a big media company. There was another company called Me Too, which is a Latino one. So I would produce stuff for them for like Snapchat, for BuzzFeed and all. They would all do like what's called digital work, like docuseries, stuff that you see on the internet. And so now I have this reputation as a producer. And so then right in the end of the pandemic, a friend of mine sends me some notes and just like one page and they're all handwritten. He just takes a picture of it and he sends it to me and he says, hey, can you turn this to a script? And on the top it said horchata with oat milk. And I said, yeah, let me give you, it was a pandemic, so nobody was doing anything. We're all inside. So I had the time to write. And I told him this. I said, look, I'll do this for free as long as you promise that you produce it because I have scripts. I wrote multiple scripts. But to go from being a aspiring writer to actually writing and then becoming a produced writer, that's a whole different level because now for me it would be a good move. So he goes, I promise you, and we will have a small budget and we do it. So long story short, I wrote this in January of 2021, and then I we shot it in late February and early March of 2021. So it was on that set that I had, I say Chicanos, but when I say Chicanos, I mean the Chicano voice, right? Latinos, both, Guatemala, Salvadorian, whatever. But we're all basically, I said, we're all raised in the same barrio, so we're all there, we're all eating from the same taco trucks, that kind of thing. So when I say Chicano, so we had Chicanos in front of the camera, Chicanos behind the camera. And we were at a meeting, and this is where the name came from. It was nothing creative. I didn't hire a marketing company. I didn't sit around with entrepreneurs and say, hey, I want to launch something for our people. It was nothing like that. I wrote that movie. We're having a dialogue meeting because I'm writing, my teenage years was in the 80s. And so when you use, any kind of, slang, Latino slang, like, it's different from the 80s than it would be to today. So we had to have a dialogue meeting with some of the talent. And so I would ask them, hey, this is how I wrote it. How would you say it? And then we would rewrite it and so on. So I had the script up on the wall. And the director he's looking at the script, it's up projected on the wall, and he's smoking a joint. And he puffs this big, that's where it came from. He's smoking a joint, and he puffs this big cloud of smoke up on, and it kind of covers the script. And I looked at that and I said, wow, that looks pretty cool. So I said, hey, bro, do it again. He goes, what? I said, a big cloud of smoke. I want to take a picture. And so he kept doing it, and he goes, I can't no more. I made him do it like 6 times. I can't. So I finally got the shot, and I got that shot, and I sent it to my daughter. Now my youngest daughter at this time, she's a senior at Azusa Pacific University, and I sent it to her, and I said, check this out. I'm with I'm with Chicano Hollywood. That's where the name came from. A bunch of Chicano professionals looking at a script, one of them smoking a joint, and Chicano Hollywood came out of that. So she responds back saying, that's a cool name. And I said, that is a cool name. So I just nicknamed that production Chicano Hollywood. So every time something good would happen, we would high five each other. Hey, we're Chicano Hollywood. If something bad would happen, we would laugh at each other. Oh, hey, we're Chicano Hollywood. So I saw how the crew in front of the camera and behind the camera, I saw how they just were embracing the name because one thing that happened was they finally were being seen. There was an appreciation of who we are as filmmakers. All these years that I was there in Hollywood, I'm knocking on the studio system's door saying, hey, will you validate my stories? And we get nothing. I would knock on studio doors where the gatekeepers were even Latino. They were from Miami, they were from Dominican Republic. And even then, they would say, we want to change the narrative. So your stories is not what we want. So they would close the door on us because to them, when they would see the gang member, American Me, the blood in, blood out, all those characters, they would be like, we don't want to be associated with that. And I would argue back saying, wait a minute, those are my stories. My dad was involved in organized crime. My stepdad was in organized crime. My real dad was an alcoholic and he was just a wino on the street, didn't even know him. Stepdad comes a picture, he's involved in organized crime. My brother he was a lifer. We were all raised in the body. We got caught up in gangs. My older brother got, we all started going to church, got saved. My older brother and myself became pastors. My younger brother, he stayed in it and he became a lifer. So he did a 23-year stretch in prison. And my mom was a farm worker. And then she became a cannery worker. And then she became she worked for the welfare office in San Jose. And then she told us, she circled us up one day as a single mom. By the mid-70s, my stepdad was killed. Everybody, my real dad was out of the picture and he died as well. So in the mid-70s, my mom's a single parent with 5 kids. She circles us up. She says, guys, look, she's working in the cannery. She goes, you guys got to help her watch the kids because I have my younger siblings and I know I need to work. And so me and my older brother are, trying to make sure things are okay. And then she circles up one day. This was like in 1980. She goes, I have an opportunity to become a bus driver for the city system. but you guys are gonna have to help. And we said, yeah, that's better. So then she became a bus driver. She became a teamster, and then our life started to elevate. And all those stories when that they would say, other Latinos especially, right? Oh, we don't want to be associated, we don't want to be stereotyped. I'm like, wait a minute, those are my stories. Those are my stories. So you're telling me that you don't want me to tell my story. So we kept getting pushback from the studios, which is all the Güeros and all those that control all the studio. We get pushback from them, and we would get even pushback from other Latinos because they didn't want to have this Chicano story. They said, no, that's not what we want. And I understand though. That's the thing about it. I understand. I get it. But they're still my stories. And then I realized when I named that group Chicano Hollywood, there was an affirmation within all of us as filmmakers that we are Chicano and we are filmmakers and we are professionals. We're no longer just going to be sitting on the laps of somebody else at the table. We are now either give us a place at the table or we're going to build our own table. And so that's what we did. So Chicano Hollywood was birthed because we I felt again everything is I do is I always pray about it, but I felt like we just need to build our own table. On March 11th, 2021, the movie was almost done. Our Chateau Don't Milk was in post-production, and the director had the makeup artist. She had like a screen printing little business, and she made T-shirts or hoodies that said really big Chicano Hollywood, really small Horchata with oat milk. And when I saw that, I'm like, wow, there's something here. So March 11th, 2021, I started the trademark. I got the socials and I got the domains, and I just launched it. And all I did was, even though I had a website that had one page on there, um, on social media, especially Instagram, all I would do was just shout them out. If someone did anything, so I started following Chicano and Latino filmmakers, and if I saw that they were doing anything, like a makeup artist was on a music video or a camera operator was on a set, no matter what it was, sound engineer, whatever, I would just repost it and say, "Hey, shout out to Jeff Reyes because he just produced this music video. Shout out to Miss Lizzie, who she just was makeup artist on this short film." And I would just give them some love. That's it. Just share it and give them some love. And what I was trying to do was is let each other know, hey, we're here. Hire each other. Look at the work. Look at the skills we have. So I just started doing that. So from March 11, 2021 to August of 2021, I really wasn't paying attention too much, but it was just part of my thing. I would just shout out and repost them and kind of build it. And then my daughter says, she goes, "Hey, you got like 2,500 followers on Instagram." And I said, "You know what? I didn't pay attention." So I let me look at it. I'm like, "Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool." And then I would connect it from Instagram to Facebook. And I said, "Well, let me check out Facebook." And so I go to Facebook and everything, whenever I post on Instagram, it would automatically go to Facebook, but I wouldn't jump on Facebook as much. So I go to Facebook and there's like 12,000 people on Facebook. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I see all the comments. All the comments were, hey, we need more Chicano sitcoms. We need more Chicano movies. We know, all the comments and dialogue and all that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was then when I realized, okay, there's something bigger here. So it birthed because I put a spotlight on us, and it would become a just a fun joke of check this out. I'm with Chicano Hollywood, a director smoking a joint with Chicano professionals. Now it's evolved into a movement where one of the things that I strive to do is to make sure I celebrate these filmmakers. And most of them, folks, are all younger than me. Then they really know what they're doing. But I celebrate these younger filmmakers. And then there's a lot that are like, my age or older, and we celebrate. And I try to change the culture. You all know as Latinos, we have that crab in the bucket culture where someone starts going up and the crabs pull them down. And
Yeah.
so I try to change the culture. So I say things over and over again, like, the days are over when we compete with each other. Now we have to lock arms and we have to get to the top together. I say things over and over again. And since then, where we're at now, so we've built out a streaming platform. It's called Chicano Hollywood TV. So you can get that on your app. And all there is right there is just a bunch of independent work there was so many people that were making content, producing content, but they had nowhere to go because the gates were closed to us. So I'm like,
Mm.
hey man, get it off of YouTube, stick it on mine, and at least you could tell your future investors it's on a streaming platform. It got acquired, and that helps them with their investment leveraging. And so I created Chicano Hollywood TV, and it's on Roku, it's on that, and I've just put a bunch of independent film work stuff on there. We created I had a meeting one time where I said, I felt I was real busy on a project and I felt disconnected because I haven't really, I'm just posting, but really didn't connect with anyone. And so then I made a post. I said, hey, anybody want to get tacos? Let's meet up. And I asked my church that I was going to in LA because they had a cool little courtyard. And I said, hey, can I have an event here? And they're like, yeah, yeah, sure. And so I expected like 25 people to show up. So I told the taquero, said, hey, man, bring enough, tacos for like 25 people. And then so we planned it. We had no idea when we sent out the invite, we had over 200 people sign up because they
Wow.
wanted to just connect. So all I'm telling my taquero like the day before, bro, I'm gonna have 200 people, so you better. So don't worry, I got it, I got it. So it was a 2 hour event. And all of a sudden, I thought I was just gonna sit down and let's get tacos, kind of like just talk, just like we're doing now. But then all of a sudden, I have 200 people show up, so you have to prepare for that, right? So again, because I was a pastor, I like, okay, I know how to do this. So I called a couple friends. Hey, I need you to do a seminar real quick on how to create an LLC, how to open up a small business, because our people need to learn how to do that. Because every time we have a movie, it always has to have its own separate legal structure. And then I called another friend. I want you to talk about the pilot that you just shot. Tell us how you did it, how much you paid, and then I did a lot of speaking. And so 2 hour event happened, came out amazing. 200 people filled the church up, and then we had tacos. And I remember after we were done with tacos, someone came up to me. He said, "That's it." I said, "Okay, guys, that's it." And he goes, "That's it." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We need to do. Can we do more? Can we do 2, 3 days?" And I thought, I said, "Yeah, let me think about it." And because again, back to my ministry, I would do big events and I'd have youth conventions, in Denver and Albuquerque and Salt Lake, and we'd use a Marriott hotel, and I'd get 2,000 people there. So I knew how to manage all that stuff. And so I said, okay, let's try it. So 4 months later, we had an event called Elevate the Latino Voice, and it was just a conference. It was just going to be 2 days, and I'm trying to put the agenda together. And in that, I get a call from Edward James Olmos's people. We heard about it. Eddie would love to be a part of it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Eddie James Olmos, right? And then I get another call from Louis Guzman. You know who Louis Guzman is? Carlitos Way and all those other fun movies. Right now, there's a TV series called Wednesdays on Netflix, and he's the dad. And so his people call me, and hey, Louis is going to be in town. Said if you want him. What? And then I had Lisa Vidal and all these other actors, and they saw a movement. They're like, okay, this guy's training people. He's doing stuff. We want to be a part of it. So it took us that Elevate conference took us to another level, and all of a sudden we're making headlines and we're on the news, and it's evolved to where it's at now. And now we have over 100,000 followers that are in the industry somehow. We have Chicano Hollywood Academy where I train people how to produce a micro budget movie. The reason I do that is a lot of people aspire to produce, but they don't realize you got to do baby steps. So I train them how to do the baby steps. I tell them, I said, I'll show you how to produce a movie. I'll show you how to write a movie. Right now, there's a real popular format called vertical drama, so I'm showing them how to do that. And my whole thing is that our voice will only get louder when there's more of us. And so I focus on training more of us so that our Chicano Latino voice is louder and we're able to take our place where we should be. I tell people all the time, we were here first. There's no reason why we should be last. So my focus is build the numbers up. We have chapters all over. We have them in El Paso, Houston, Chicago. I have a good following there in Salt Lake. I got one young homie that's hit me up all the time. Come to Salt Lake, so I'm going to be coming to Salt Lake. I saw someone put in the chat about Sundance and Luis Valdez's movie documentary. Actually, I just reached out to them. I'm going to try it. We have a film festival that we do every summer in Pomona, California, and I'm going to try to get that to be show that there at our film festival. So hopefully we're planning right now, talking about coming to Sundance in a couple weeks. That's already like in a week and a half. So that we're going to do that. If we do that, last time we went to Sundance, I put a post up and I said, "Hey, I'm in Sundance. Anybody want to get coffee?" And we had like 20 people show up right there at the Abacus there in Park City, and we had coffee. It was really fun meeting, right? And we're supporting stuff. So where we're at now, we have multiple chapters. We have a magazine that we bring out. We have, we have our streaming platform. We have our events, and we have our training. We're doing all this just to create our own, what I call it, an entertainment-based economic ecosystem. My whole goal is to build like a superhighway into the homes of Latinos and Chicanos. We give them content from movies to TV shows to digital content to webisodes and so on with their faces, with our stories with our faces and our voice produced by our people so that our community as a whole, Chicanos, Manitos, Latinos, we feel like, okay, we are finally represented in the entertainment space. We don't need Hollywood anymore. We have the skills, we have the equipment, we have all that. We have the stories that need to be told. We need money. So right now I'm bringing on a capital raising team in February, and we're going to start raising seed, do a seed round, and our goal is to raise a couple $1 million. And with that money, we're going to just build and get more content and get our reach out to about 1 million. And then we'll do a Series A and raise some more money, and just so we can get our. My whole goal is to put food on the table of raza that they've dreamt about, and they have the artistic skills to create our stories, whether it be on a magazine or whether it be in a TV show or whether it be on Instagram or Facebook. That's what the goal is. And so focus on a lot of training. I have an amazing team around me. I have Chicanos that have developed the Cardassians that are now working with me, and I have people that are just very highly skilled that because they finally feel like there's a movement that they can connect with. They finally feel like they're being seen. They've locked arms with us, and we're building and we're growing. So um, that's pretty much a story of how we came. So you know who I am and how it started and what we're doing now. And I'm still a producer. It's not like I don't make a living off Chicano Hollywood. I have like 3 movies right now that we're dealing with and working with in production, which it's a good thing because they're going to stretch me. The largest budget I've worked with was 2.2 million. So these 3 movies, one of them is 1.5 million, the other one's 8 million, the other one's 20 million. So I thank God that I'm at that position now that people with those kind of budgets are saying, "Hey, can you help us?" And so far so good. So I'm hoping out of those, we're able to also tap into the funders and get more of our stories done. So I'm kind of doing a strategic play to get in there and work my butt off so I can meet the film fund. It works as a hedge fund, and but again, I'm just a hired gun on that. So I'm trying to make some good friends, and then I'll pitch our stuff so we can get our people working. So, anyways, I know I get till like 10:30. So anyone have any questions? That's the Chicano Hollywood story. So we will have a chapter in Salt Lake soon. So
Okay, can I say something?
Mhm.
This is Lourdes Cook. And as part of Artes de Mexico in Utah, here in Utah, we have a connection with the Salt Lake Film Society, and we have been bringing for the last 14 years contemporary movies from Mexico, and we present it here in Salt Lake City. We we typically do it in November, and this last presentation we had was really outstanding. And I think that you have captured something I have thought for a million years, because I'm almost a million years old. I'm 77 years old. But anyway, what I want to say is that you're absolutely right. We have such a rich history, such a diversified history, that everybody appropriates our history. And it is a time, and I have a lot of respect myself for the Chicano. I'm kind of fortunate because I have the understanding of Mexico. I was born there, but I have lived most of my life here for the last 57 years. I have lived here in the United States. And I had a fantastic person like you are, somebody that really teach you what Chicano is, and you fight for what they have fought for. And we that in a way are immigrants, we need to know better your story. I am lucky because I was fortunate to meet some people that had taught me so much. But I think that you're absolutely right, and I want to hopefully to connect with you in such a way, because we have some people that help us identify extraordinary movies from Mexico, and then we bring them here to Salt Lake Film Society. And we have a lot of followers. We would like to have more, because sometimes, like I said, they appropriate our heritage, but we also need a commitment to educate our own people. And sometimes our own people are working 2 jobs and they don't have the luxury of coming. And we need to really, perhaps with your understanding, how to reach those people that they need this enthusiasm, this pride, and seeing us on films, and it is our own things. It's not being appropriated by somebody else. Because
I agree.
It's kind of like a taco. Okay, I one time researched Taco Bell. Okay, Taco Bell is owned by a very rich company here in the United States, making, and it's not it's with billions of dollars. Okay, and okay, who did they use? The Mexican people that makes those tacos. They pay them $11 an hour, and they are getting super rich. I got your message. I don't need to say anymore, but I am so excited to hear this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And you're right. There's one story that I would love to retell. It was of I forgot the guy's first name, but Galvan. He was a World War II hero that convinced he's a Chicano guy adopted by a Japanese family, and he was fluent in Japanese. When he was in World War II, he convinced 1,500 Japanese soldiers to surrender. And Chicano guy from East LA. They did a movie about him back in the 50s, but they made him a white guy.
Yeah.
And they made the whole story about, but it was his story. And that's the kind of stuff like they've taken our stories and they put their skin on them, said, "Oh yeah, this is what we're doing." It's like, no, that's not the truth. So yeah, part of with God's blessing as we grow, we want to produce stuff like that and retell the stories that they took from us, So cool. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, that story very quickly was Guy Gabaldon.
Guy Garbadon. Yes, that's it.
And Held for Eternity with Tab Hunter.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Yeah.
And I watched that movie, and you and I have the same idea. That has to be retold more authentically. It's a great story, but it's also embarrassing.
Yeah, a great story. And that was one of us. Yeah.
Would you put your contact information in the chat?
Yes, I will. I will do that there. And Manuel knows how to get a hold of me as my phone number. Manuel, you can give my number to anybody you want. And feel free to hit me up. I'll put my email there. Anybody else have any questions? I know you have an agenda. I want to honor it and jump off so you guys can have your board meeting. I think you have a board meeting, right? I was looking at the agenda, so I don't want to assume anything. Maybe you're going to have lunch. Any other questions?
Thank you, Johnny.
No, thank you guys. So just appreciate you following us. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. You can download our TV now. You're gonna see a bunch of indie stuff there. We are building this, and I'll end it with this. The Gabachos have 6, 7 generations on us when it comes to Hollywood. They started in maybe 4 generations, but when they started Hollywood, they moved it from New York and They went to Hollywood and they started it there. They have that many generations. There's families that are three or four deep on involved at the highest levels of Hollywood. We were maybe one. The pioneers Latinos like Cesar Romero, Ricardo Montalban. There was a handful that were trying to do something. The 80s and 90s, there was a handful, but they were just fighting each other. They were auditioning against each other. And I had one of those old iconic names tell me, if we'd have had your organization back in the 80s and 90s, we'd be so far advanced. But we kept fighting each other and competing with each other because we walk into an audition room and we'd see each other and try to get that one job. And so we were crabbing the bucket. So because of that, we lost a generation of actors, directors, writers, because when anyone would ask, how do I get involved? We would tell them, oh, don't do it. And we'd say, don't do it. And we'd push people away because we didn't want any more competition. We came in now, our culture that we're creating and pushing is we have to work together. We have to work together.
Yes.
And that we're building this for not just our children, but our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. So that's what Chicano Hollywood is. We're building something so that even though they have 4 or 5 generations on us, that's why they're in control of everything. I tell people now the future is brown and the future is bright. And we're building this so that our posterity know that they have their place. And if they want to get in there, there's opportunity and they'll see us there as professionals and they're going to be like, I could do that. So I tell our writers, you are writing the future. You are architects of the future. If you write us as gang members, our children will become gang members. But if you write us as doctors, lawyers, politicians, entrepreneurs, startups, our children will become that. So we have to create stories where we are architecting the future of the Latino community. So,
Can I say
thank you.
one more? Can I say one more thing? You're reminding me because I saw I saw it actually twice. The film of Guillermo del Toro, Frankenstein. And
Yeah.
I have been focused a little bit about what he says in his heart, what he believed of himself since he was a child, and how he brings that culture. You think if you see Frankenstein, people might not see the culture, the identity that he brings into his movies. And if you listen to him, it just becomes so much more apparent, and then you become more proud. And I think that's the message that you're trying to give us. But let me just add by saying that Mexico is considered one of the cinematography successes of the world. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying that don't limit yourself just to the United States, because there is so much richness in acting and so forth that you can kind of bring together again to give that identity, that richness, that we are part of a civilization of thousands of years, not just in the last little while. There is a lot of things that we are proud, and
Yeah.
very few countries or people in the world have the richness that we have.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, thank you. I will let you guys go. Have your meeting. Hopefully you keep on
Thank you
schedule.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank
If
you,
anyone wants to
Johnny.
reach out, yeah, thank you guys. And there's my email, my phone number. Anyone wants to reach out, I am available. So, all right, guys, you have a
Johnny,
great
thank you.
day.
Well, I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.